It's 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm Houston, Texas, and you're at Folk You Zeus, and I am Mark Zeus, your perennial host. Is perennial the right word to use on that? But anyway, always host. Um, so it's this week. Yeah, we're doing the weekly. I want to remind everybody I'm doing this every week. I'm committed to do it. It's a live thing. I see we got one person out there. Thank you very much. If you want to chime in and say, "Hey, how you doing?" We're all good. We're going to try to do some interactive discussions as we go. Uh, if it's just me talking, that's fine. But I'd like to get everybody else's opinions as we bring up various questions and thoughts. Today's topic is art and craft. You could say either art versus craft, meaning there's opposites or it's similar. It's the same art and craft, or art or craft is evaluating a piece of work and saying, is that a piece of art? Is that a piece of craft? And going, is that a piece of crap? That's no, it's not. Craft. So we go arts and crafts. Everybody's hears that term consistently, and you try to say, what's the difference? And we're going to talk a little bit about the difference. And up front, there's a lot of similarities, obviously. If anybody who's been involved in arts and crafts, and we'll talk about the similarities between them. But maybe we're going to look at some of the differences up front. And a question that I posed right up front was, why even bother? Why bother? Identifying the differences. Just let it all be. Let it be. Whether it's an art, whether it's a craft, it doesn't really matter. It's a piece of work, and we're going to appreciate it. But it doesn't matter maybe as much to the general public at certain times when they're looking at that work. But as an artist, as somebody that's working on it, or a craftsman, you want to understand that in order to achieve my goal, in order to get to my goal, I have to know what side I'm going to be using. And we're going to talk about the differences and get into the differences now, and recognizing the differences and what value that has to be able to understand where you're coming from. Am I coming from an artist view, or am I coming from a craftsman's view? So I was looking at well, first thing we're going to do is, like I usually do here, is get some definitions. And I'm not just going to ask a definition of art, because that's going to be way too broad. But I'm going to ask, what is an artist? Because I think that might be more pointed and more specific as to what we're looking for as we're trying to define, looking at more from the artist side than the consumer side, or the audience side, or however you want to, the people that are viewing or partaking in the art. What is an artist?
Here's the definition of artist: a person who produces paintings or drawings as a profession or hobby.
That is way too so, but yeah, that's just the first one. I'll continue on. She just didn't want to say too much today. Okay, a person who practices any of the various creative arts, such as sculptor, novelist, poet, or filmmaker. A person skilled at a particular task or occupation. Okay, so they give the example of a surgeon who is an artist with a scalpel. That's kind of more using it in a metaphorical sense, wouldn't you think, than the actual definition of what an artist is. Um, so yeah, we can leave that one out. You look at some of these. I hate to be a snob or anything like this, but some of these things, we get it from. It's mainly stuff from Wikipedia and various dictionaries and that, and they tend to be kind of simplified. But if you are an artist, you know that there's a deeper meaning to what an artist is. And here it's identifying more. We think of like the first one. It's like an artist is a person who paints or draws, maybe. You know what I mean? Is visual art, but anybody who is a artist at choreography. There's the choreographers are artists. It mentions sculptors here, but I mean, besides just visual arts, you've got creative arts, and obviously as a songwriter, we're considered. And that's another thing too. Is sometimes we overuse, or we kind of extend the meaning way broadly beyond that. I've said, even leaving metaphor aside, like we'll call every person a recording artist, okay, as an artist. If you're an let's say a diva or something is considered an artist. they might be. It depends. Like, if you look, maybe they've got to a point, and here's where we'll get into the craft as it applies to art. Is maybe they've got to a point where they've crafted their voice. So, and then they plug into, lots of times in pop music, you plug into a system to where other people will take your product, which is what you've developed with your voice and beyond, and whatever it is, your guitar playing, whatever it is, and they plug you into a song, they plug you into an arrangement, they plug you in with musicians around it. It's all arranged and everything. So all you got to do is do your singing, and that's your art, I guess. Is it? Are you doing it as a craft? There are people that go into studio as studio musicians, studio singers, and they might just be able, because they've honed their craft. So this is where that difference comes in, because they've honed their craft so well, they can take an artist instruction. Let's say you could say the producer is actually sculpting the art, using a metaphor for the other type of art. So it's kind of a sculpting that song, putting that song together, and here's what I want you to play, because this person is an excellent craftsman. So that's the difference. Is we have to understand what our role is sometimes coming into a situation where we have an opportunity to contribute to a work of art, or make a work of art, and there's certain steps and phases in the development of a piece of art where it takes craft as well. So what I did first here, and okay, now we're going to do what is a craftsman. So let's see what she says here. What is a craftsman?
Here's the definition of craftsman: a person who is skilled in a particular craft.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I guess it's up to us to determine our own definitions for what a craft is. So yeah, we'll do that. We will do that. It's left up to us as uh, just the consumer and the person here that's Googling. Um, I'll start the argument to say that a craft is a piece of work that exhibits the efficiency of an individual to be able to achieve the end game of that work. This doesn't bring in a lot of other what artists would bring in, or if you are a craftsman who's an artist as well, and that is a lot of craftsmen are. Some craftsmen aren't. They you give them a plan. This is the plan. Do this. Cut it right. Tile that floor. You that's a craft. Takes a lot of, in order to do it correctly and to do it efficiently. Okay, it takes a lot of work, a lot of study. As a tutor or whatever, to be tutored. Um, what am I looking for? Apprentice, if you go in and be apprentice. So there's lots in just the basic crafts that people have that you get to be efficient. So craftsmen become efficient. If you're not an efficient craftsman, you'll have hard time getting the opportunities to provide your craft. So if you think about it, even in art, I mean, there's opportunities. Okay, like we said, where you're going to place your art. Okay, you have to do that. You have to have opportunities to place your art. If you haven't really honed your crafting tools, you haven't got to the point, you're not going to have those opportunities. People aren't going to seek you out to be a craftsman, be a craft person. I guess we should be politically correct in these days. But in general, I think most people understand what I'm talking about. Now, what I did is to show some differences, I've identified some what would be dichotomies, like kind of opposing, opposite, but not quite opposite. Just kind of like this kind of a. So I use some adjectives here, and some basic concepts that most people will understand. So the first dichotomy that I'll offer is left versus right. We talk about in brain. Okay, left brain, right brain, the analytical versus the creative side. You can look at it at that more. This guy's like the craftsman makes sure that everything's going to be perfect. It's going to be what exactly that end game is. I know exactly what it should be, and it should be in these parameters. and it's going to get to that point. Whereas, so you got, and where is a right brain person, supposedly that's the creative side. It's abstract. You're bringing in the all kinds of ideas and that to make that end game kind of different, but you don't know exactly maybe where it's going to end up. Or you might have a goal to where it is, but it's not so defined with parameters and measurements and all that. So you could look at it that way, where it's a left brain and right brain. Another and it won't go too deeply into that, but if you don't understand, if you haven't heard that concept, there's left brain, right brain, there's whole brain people. Some people kind of gear themselves more to being more analytical, some are more creative, and then there's people that can go both ways. I think most artists are relatively whole brained. I think you have to get to a point to where you're not just coming off with ideas and not going anywhere with them. Creative. You could be a creative in your mind, and then where's it going to go? So and that'll work with some of these other dichotomies as we go on. The next one is inspiration versus dedication. So when a craftsman takes on a task, he dedicates himself to achieve what needs to have to happen in order to get to the goal. Whereas somebody that is on the right brain, or the more creative, the artist, okay, doing that, it's you have to be inspired. It's like you always talk about, like a thing is like writing a song. I have to be in the right frame of mind, and I have to have that inspiration, or something has to kind of like spur me on and give me that, or I'm drawing from other sources and my past, whatever you put together in order to get to the point to where, yes, I'm creating. Now I'm in a position where I'm in a creative state. So you'll need inspiration. What you need on the craft side is you need that dedication, that I'm ready, I'm going. It's have to be, so maybe spontaneity, but inspiration versus spontaneity could be another one that can work in that. So the next one is I had my buddy was over. We were working on some recording, and we got into a conversation, and he asked me what I was doing for the podcast today, and I told him, and he said he came up with a story that a friend of his told him that he was recognized. The guy says, well, his buddy told him that there's two kinds of people. There's two kinds of people. There's flashers and grinders. So, and my buddy says, well, I'm a flasher. And I said, no, I don't know. I don't know if you want to go there, but flasher meaning you have these flashes of inspiration and ideas and creativity, or whatever, you have whatever, like this is when, even if it's technical, like my buddy's an engineer, so he'll have an idea for something, and he'll have the whole plan in his head and all that. So I mean, he comes up with lots of great ideas, and we've written a couple songs together. Usually him starting it and I'm finishing it, because it's that kind of way. He's the flasher. I might be considered more of a grinder, but you have to be, if you're a songwriter in general, you have to be both ends, like I'm saying before, to left and right. And grinders being the people that take something, take an idea, and take a tangible idea and get it to, and move it on, and do what it takes to get it to a certain place to where you want to get it. So defining, maybe the artist comes in and can create the parameters, and then the grinder or the craftsman come in and take hold and do that. And like I said, you could be both, or you can be separate. And I had offered to him the thing about songwriters. There's lyricists and composers. There's some that are just lyricists and composers. He said, well, that's like poet, musician kind of thing. Well, I said, yeah, well, in a lot of respects, musicians have to be excellent craftsmen, and I'll go into that as we go. And same thing with painters. I mean, you get to a point where if you think that you are an artist, you're probably, have a lot of skills that have been achieved, and you've done things that have getting you ready to create that art. So you go to school, whatever. Some people don't have to go to school, but they keep painting, they keep painting, they keep doing it, and they keep and said finding the ways to use the brush and to mix the colors. And there's some art that goes into just the mixing of the colors and all that as well. But how you use the colors and where you place it and all that, gotta is if it's if you're doing a perfect copy, and that's another thing I'll talk about later too, is you want to copy something exactly, and that's done. That is done for various purposes. So then you just use your craft. I'm a great painter. I can paint things. I can copy things. I can do a line for. I can make it look. I can make a stroke look like a stroke. That's not being an artist. That's being an excellent craftsperson. So that concept of that. The next dichotomy or opposite, you might say, is and a friend of mine brought this up, and I told him to join us at 8 here. I don't know if he didn't make it anyway, but another friend of mine, Mark, had made a comment on the announcement for this and said, art equals original and craft equals cover, or a cover copy song, if you don't know the terminology there. So I mean, so you have as an artist in music, an artist is someone who writes songs, and then someone who covers songs, who just learns other people's songs. And I was going to argue with, it kind of makes sense. But I was going to also argue, says it doesn't, it gets to a point to where the person that necessarily provides the original material, there is art involved with that, but not necessarily somebody that is taking another person's work and creating a fresh view of it. Like I said before, if you copy it, like tempo and whole, everything. If you took everything, just said, I'm going to make a copy of this, you're a craftsman. If you can do that, if you could take an exact copy of somebody that has created something and make them 100% where you can't tell the difference. Okay, you can make a lot of money doing that too. So, but anyway, at least in the art world, I would imagine, but we won't go too deeply into the sinister side of that. So it's not necessarily that cut and dried as to, okay, if you create an original piece of work, it's not just it just fell out of the sky and I've got this work. And so somewhere along the line, you had some ideas, you kind of collected them, and you sat down and you used whatever crafting tools that you have within your arsenal as an arranger. Arrangers are crafts. There's art that can be applied, but you might look in and say, okay, this kind of alludes to a certain kind of form as we want to put this together. But you put together so many songs, kind of like you've put together so many for somebody that does furniture. You put together so many dressers and drawers that it's kind of like how to dovetail and do all that stuff that's necessary to get that use that craft to get to that point. Where same thing is there's guys that studios that people bring their stuff in and they advertise all the time. We'll take it takes 2 hours. We're going to have three of your songs down and blah blah blah. We'll make it and we'll craft it up. So those are kind of crafters. They're not artists. They're kind of like taking it and making it kind of sound like a real song. Like that thing is it your song or a real song? It's so they'll take it and make it palatable to the masses, or palatable to what, or comparable to stuff that you might hear on the radio or whatever. So produced to a certain point, they'll have parameters. We're gonna fit you into these parameters. So a lot of engineers, like sound engineers, and that are craftsmen. They really know how to take something and do that. Now once the engineer gets involved in actually participating in beyond just this is what the parameters. Okay, you might just ask a sound engineer, well, what do you think you would do here that would be a little bit not really typical to what we know as being the norm. So now that sound engineer is working into his creative realm, So he's saying, oh, okay, so we can maybe change the rhythm up a little bit here so that this crescendo works a little better and is a little more powerful to this point. I mean, he's bringing his craft in, but he's also creating something new that's new to this piece of work that's being worked on. And like visual artists, most painters probably don't collaborate as often as musicians do. It's more of a solitary. You put yourself away and you create that. It's kind of like more of as a songwriter. If you're an individual, just an individual writes songs. You don't. You might sit in and get up some ideas while you're sitting in a coffee house or bar or something like that, and have some words and put it down. But when it's time to come and really compilate and bring lyrics together and bring musical ideas together and stuff like that, you usually do it in a solitary manner where you sit down and with a guitar piano or just your voice or whatever, and kind of contemplate and come up with the actual musical and lyrical idea that you want, and with a basic form that you're thinking about. And then from there you take it and then you craft the song. So I would imagine that visual artists, I mean, I've done some visual art, I've been in art classes and all that. And the first thing you do in an art class is you get a sketch first. Even if you're going to paint something, get to like a real light kind of sketch, kind of get it to where you want it to. You think this is, if you're doing a portrait of somebody or something, you just kind of get the outlines, you get the general gist of what's happening with the person that your subject is or whatever. If you're painting a mountain, you kind of get the where the rises, and if you get the horizon and you figure all that stuff out, and it's just very lightly done, and then you come over with the paints. That's that's what I was taught as being a very very typical way of working your craft. And then from there, then it's kind of like, okay, now that's, I got to that point. Now I can be real creative with my colors and, do I want it to make it exactly the same as what I'm seeing, or do I want it to have a certain something comes out, accentuate the lighting here and there and whatever the shadows, and find and deepen that to make it stand out a little more. So these are things that you do post original ideas as to what you want to do. So I think it's important to understand the difference between where that lies, that point of where, as an artist, I've gotten it to this point. Okay, now what? Now what? Is it finished? Well, maybe not. I got to kind of come in and I got to arrange this song. I got to kind of put it in a right respect where it can be presentable to somebody that's going to, even if I'm not going to do it, if somebody else is going, I got to write it down. I've got to craft. I got to do notation. It's in itself a crafty thing to do. They've got computer programs for that now, but yeah. So you'll have to make it work it up to a point to where it is what it finally is going to be. And that implies a certain amount of craft. So, and there's talent within craft. There's talent within art. There's different, type. But we can talk. That's something that we'll go on is talk specifically about talent, and if it's overrated, or or how much is talent and how much is just hard work and sweat and blood and tears and all that. So. Anyway, so okay, you kind of went off on that one a little bit. Where we had that original, and I came up, the original and precision, That's like what I'm saying. Original, is it an original work, or you can't really compare it to anything else? Mostly might be in a certain style, but it doesn't look like anything else. Or do I want to make it precise to something that I know that I've either seen before, or somebody told me to do exactly this, or it's been laid out that this needs to be that way. So that's the difference between a craft. All right. And I'm I'm not saying that all craft has no art, but the essence of craft versus the essence of art. And I think it helps. It behooves you to understand that once you've gotten a work of art going, and it's like that artist point. Now you got to be a craftsman. Now you got to come in and do that, or hand it to a craftsman. Say, here's some lyrics in a basic melody that I have. Craft me a basic kind of a song that'll go along with it that changes and a feel and all that. That's kind of work. Um, so it's that thing, and it's not to say that artists are they're really they're should have more honor and respect and all that. And craftsmen are just the little guys that are kind of like underneath here, kind of like the drones that are supporting the artists and stuff. Without the craftsmen, without the really solid, great craftsmen, I would argue, and even if it's the same person, I would argue that if you don't have the crafts to support your art's going to really not. It won't be accepted or seen, or it won't get to a point to where even you'll want to have it. Um, so that precision to achieve that, even if you handed something that's a piece of art, say, okay, put it in the context here so we can, so it really stands out or whatever. So okay, next one is the next one is kind of like a very adversarial: confusion versus order. So an artist goes in a lot of times. You won't. Sometimes I'll go in and I have no idea. I'll have just this basic idea for a groove or some kind of like sounding of a word, like uh, uh, loser, baby, loser. It's like, so, okay, loser what? I mean, what did you lose? Why are you a loser? What's like, so I mean, or you'll have that and but you have it in a certain melody. So maybe you'll extend it out and saying, I'm a loser, like, or you're a loser. Well, look out, baby, look behind you. You're going to lose again or something, then you expand from there. And then this kind of, you gotta, and it's another thing. And good to bring it in here is you have to kind of open up to the muse, MUSE. If you don't know what a muse is, basically your inspiration. It goes back to the inspiration concept. Is that this is the muses. This is from it was Greek mythology, I believe. The muses. So you can look into it. But they were the person, or no, the being that kind of gets into your mind and helps you to create. So just an inspiration, but it's put in a personification of a muse. A muse is like somewhat of a person, a spiritual person, or that helps you. So that's what a muse is. But so you can look at that as being, uh, that's what's, it's not your logic that is formulating things, although maybe it is, and maybe you blame the muse. So that's time we blame the muse. Oh, that song sucks, and our muse sucked. Like, I didn't come up with that. That sucked. So you look at that, and it's like it gets to be a little confusing in your mind, is that you get different ideas. It's kind of like so you're trying to, and the order. Now you're trying to make some kind of an order out of it, but it's best if you don't try to get too concise with how you order your confusion, if that makes any sense. And the other side, the craftsman being order. Okay, let's bring order to it. Let's make sure that it's going to be well heard. If it's a song, or it's, as people view it, it's not going to be, the colors aren't going to be so bright, or maybe I want them to be so bright, whatever it is. But in order to get there, I got to know how to get there. So that's the other side of it, is to be able to organize and order and put things in an order. And last dichotomy that I had up here is permission. Yeah, permission versus firm. Permissive versus firm. Okay, firm meaning static, in position. Bring things to a close and keep it in a position. Understand everything is together. Whereas permissive, allow yourself to move things around to be able to be more beautiful and creative and do things and stuff. So when you're on the artist side, when you're working on the artist side, you're allowing yourself to don't say, well, this note doesn't belong in this chord. Okay, you shouldn't be thinking that way. Then you have to change the chord. So we got Boris Sharper tuning in here. So let's see what he's got to say. So if you are inspired by the muse and you write a song that has a humorous topic, is the process called amusing? Is the process called amusing? Okay, so we're okay. That's a definite. To be honest with you, that would be a good term to kind of coin and to start using. Write a song like that, Mark. Mark Borshopper is a songwriter, lives in Tennessee, and we knew each other from Chicago, the old Abbey Pub days. So yeah, that's okay. So amusing, haha. I like it. Beautiful. Anyway, okay. So yeah, going back to being allowing yourself to change things. Not to being too rigid. So when you're in the artist phase, and then in the crafts person's phase, is two different things. So you get to a point, and then the craft person might make the change, but it'll be for maybe more of a technical reason, or to say, you know what, that's clashing. So when the artist was writing it, so when I was in my artist mode, I might have said, oh yeah, that's all great and stuff, but then I'll bring it down into craftsman mode, and then bring it to the order. Talk about how we're going to organize and keep all that within a certain parameters, bring it into some parameters. So and bringing it to parameters also allows us to communicate to other musicians what we've done, or to, like I said, even if you apply it into most of the arts, I mean, it's kind of like, so if it's a collaborative art where you're working with somebody else to create it, especially with dancing and whatever in theater, anything, there's always there's interaction to understand what we want. We're all working towards, we're all being artists at one point, and then the director comes in and says, okay, well, we're going to take this and so this works right, and put it all together. So anyway, so that's what the dichotomy. So we're looking at the dichotomy. And I'm just going to throw some adjectives here too, that kind of like, well, you could take or leave. I could say that our artists are intellectual and craftspeople are tangible. Adjectives I threw out there. If anybody else wants to throw in an adjective, or like that, use that kind of thing. What can you say about an artist, and in a similar kind of vein? So I'm thinking of somebody's intellectually kind of developing something, whether it be from the muse or whatever, you take it, and it's a mind game kind of thing. The next one creates it, makes it into tangible. So it's a beginning with the art, and then the craft makes it into a tangible. And obviously you can go opposite either. You could start with something, and here goes back to Mark. And hopefully, I don't know if Mark left, but if you're still out there, man, he brought up the concept. He's the one who brought up the concept of a cover song. So if you do a cover song, that's a craft. If you craft it versus original, what I say is, like, you could start with the craft and say, start with a cover song, learn it, and say, you know what, but that doesn't fit what I'm thinking. I want to do something a little bit different with this. Now the artist is kicking in. So as you learn it, and a lot of times that's as somebody that does cover, a songwriter that also does cover material. Most of the time, in fact, I would say probably most of the time, I will learn through my craft, being able to learn songs and to be able to execute and kind of like get it to the point where I've heard it, and I'll kind of duplicate it to a certain point so I can get it. Oh, these are chord changes. This is the melody. This is like whatever. I'll maybe learn it in original key, and maybe I'll have to change. I'll change it in the key. That's even to understand where your range is if you're going to sing it. So you got that. So I'll learn it. Then all of a sudden it'll be kind of like, well, it just doesn't kind of fit me. I'm going to beat the tempo up. I'm going to put an extra bar 4 here and do a little more of a crescendo that I'm looking for, or some kind of a little break or a rest, or start putting in things that I think will make the song better for me as the artist now coming in and saying to make the performance. Uh, so you could start with the crafted, take somebody else's crafted song, learn it. That's a craft that you have. If you're not able to learn the damn song, you're not going to be able to add anything to it as an artist. So you can't start there. So you have to start with being able to do that. So yeah, so that's going back to what he brought up. Um, another one, creative and disciplined. So that goes back to the basics of it, the creative side, the discipline side. So you create as a songwriter. I come up with this big idea and this thing, and I put it all together, just kind of like get it to the point to where, all right, now I got to look at the little, got to hone it out a little bit and see what's working and what's not. You step back. Good thing always is to kind of like, even when I write a song, I'll leave it for at least a few hours. I'm go away, go grab something to eat, or take whatever, go to gym, come back. Yeah, kind of go take another whack at it. If I recorded it or whatever, usually it's in my head enough to do it. I'll say, okay, here's, and I'll be thinking about it along the way, and taking that basically written song and seeing if I need to do anything to it to put it into to where the listener is going to hear it as a song. It's going to, that's a real song. You didn't write that. Nah. So, anyways, it's that kind of a thing where you have to be now you bring the discipline in to say, okay, now we got to try to put it into this to where, yeah, it's going to be performed. So it needs to have these parameters for it, and it could be free. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's like, even as a, you might have it like especially in a band, you got solo, you got 8-bar solo, and say, okay, take another 8 bars. It's like, okay, it doesn't have to, no, I can't. It's only supposed to be 8 bars. No, the guitar player turn around and do another 8 bars, be creative on top of it. So, I mean, there's, especially in live situations, perfect time to be creative with songs, and even in theater and in improv and all that, the art of it sometimes is the spontaneity of it. You want it to be spontaneous at times. So there are times to be, like I said, there's times to be a crafts person. There's times to be an artist, and it's understanding the difference between the two allows you to meld it together to where it works for you. You might be more of an artist, and so you have to get help. You have to get help to get it crafted properly. So you might be just more of a lyricist, and that's your art. And the other person is a composer. That's their art, or whatever. You might be a composer and lyricist, but you might need help from somebody else that's also a composer or a lyricist or whatever. So I think enough said about all that stuff. Okay. Yeah. And moving on with reproducing art. I got a few things here left that I want to kind of cover. When you reproduce art, so let's say, and we've alluded to that. So when you take a piece of art and you look at it, the Mona Lisa, all right, you look at the Mona Lisa and you take it and you say, okay, I'm going to reproduce it. I'm going to do exactly. I'm a good enough craftsman to be able to do all the things, to make all the strokes and the I understand what I need to do to get this thing to look exactly like the Mona Lisa. So that is a definite definition of taking a piece of art and making a piece of craft. You could call it a piece of art, but I'd argue that the duplication that you have made is a work of is a craft. You've crafted something to, that it's not a piece of art anymore. Argue with me if you want. That's why I'm hoping that we get these things to be live, because I would, because these are concepts that I thought about, because that's what I am. I'm an artist, but I'm also a craftsman. I have to understand that, and I have to understand the difference. And I know that I don't play every instrument in the world. So if I actually, to give you an example, on my recordings, I'll often play bass guitar. I'm good enough crafted. I know bass. I know I'm knowledgeable enough to to be able to understand the parts that need to be played, the notes that need to be played. But I'm not dexterily, is that a word? Dexterily able to play a lot of things, and I'm not used to certain things and styles and that. And if it gets a little bit complicated and it changes, if I've written some changes or a little bit, I won't want to be the bassist on the recording. So I'll call in a real bassist. So, or so that would be an example too. Is that there, you got to understand the limitations of your craft as well, and be willing to bring in other people or get advice from other people. Don't be so what would you call it? Strict. And I brought up strict as being in the craftsman vein, but and that might be the person that might say, okay, I'm a craftsman. I'm at the top of my game. I know that that's finished. That's done. As an artist, you have to understand that it's a work of art still. So I maybe got it to a certain level as a craftsman, but I don't have the ability to move it to the next level that I really would like it to be. So I'd like it to be 100% satisfied as being work of art, but maybe I don't have the skills or have developed the craft enough to reproduce what's in my head. So I'll have to call on other craftsmen that come in and help me out. Other, you know, fiddle players, keyboard players, bass players, drummer. I'm not a drummer. I can shake a shaker or whatever, and I can do a couple little things and on hand drums, but I don't. If I want a real part, I'm going to go somewhere else to get it. And I don't do mechanical or electronic drums, digital stuff. I run a real person playing. That's kind of that's me. Do it the way you want to. So the imitation, I'd argue that the imitation becomes become crafted. It's a craft. And the value of imitating art, I put that down there, the value, and I limit to, is it legal or is it not? What are you trying to do with it? Are you trying to this is the Mona Lisa. I got a hold of the Mona Lisa here, guys. Pay me $150 million or whatever, for this, value. Obviously, it's like, but even if you market it as being, hey, I do copies of classic romantic paintings and impressionist art and stuff like that, it fits into a pop culture thing more. It's kind of like people like to have they might like to say, oh, this is exactly a copy of this. But as long as you market it as a copy, but whatever floats your boat, that kind of thing. But realize that you're not being an artist. You're being a craftsman. You might be a good entrepreneurial spirit because you found a way to market your copies of these paintings in a way that's legal and financially beneficial to you. So, yeah. So I wrote here on the side here on learning to paint and learning to play guitar. Both of those processes are crafts. Okay, you're learning crafts. Painting is a craft. It becomes an art when you start getting to a point of saying, yeah, I'm ready to create something that's using my craft to be able to get to that point to where I feel like something's finished and it's like, ready to go as to represent what was in my head. So it's got a lot to do with that intellectual, as we say. And learning to play guitar, same thing, man. You do your scales, you do this like that. You're not creating these. You might create some scales, and maybe there's a little art involved in that. But believe me, no matter what scales you play, they've been played before. Somebody's come up. Unless you got like, even you go to Eastern music and you're playing the in between the quarter tones and all that. Somebody's played it, whatever. So, but you're learning the instrument, how to manipulate the instrument. So it's just being able to get to a point to where you're ready to start being real artist. I guess real artist is a very subjective term as well. So, Yeah, okay. You become an artist when you realize the muse. Let me go back to the muse. When you recognize it. No, I put recognize. That makes more sense. Um, you become an artist when you recognize the muse, meaning uh, ideas are coming to you that are very original and not within the realm of your craft. Something you'll come up with a lick on a guitar, and it'll be, huh, that's something that I've never played before. I haven't really learned, but it's something that I'm coming up with. So now you're saying, well, what, you can look back if you wanted to analyze that and say, well, how did I get that? It's that muse. It's that something in you. It's you're connecting synapses in a certain way that it's, that in that right brain. So, so that, you have to, that's when you start to come up with enough of those kinds of things, you can kind of say, yeah, I'm becoming an artist. I can come up with some very original ideas, put them together and make us, and then craft it. So after the facts, but the artist part of it is really coming up with the ideas to move it beyond what your craft has already been able to accomplish. So yeah, recognize the muse. For most, it's important to be both a craftsman and artist, but know the difference when deciding when and how to focus. So that's a little synopsis of what we've been talking about. Is kind of like, understand, now I'm in artist mode. Now I'm in crafting mode. Maybe there's not maybe there's a gray area, but it helps to be able to step back a little bit from your artist and say, and evaluate it and say, instead of the artist being so stubborn to say, no, this is going to work, this is going to work, this is going to work. And then if you flip back in a craftsman, you're going to say, nah, that's not working. That's not working. So you have to kind of step back a little bit from your artist to get into your craftsperson, and vice versa too. You might be crafting, it's going to be it's maybe a little too perfect. There's nothing, it just sounds too boxy or something, and it doesn't need something. So you go back to the artist, say, well, what can we do? And this is me talking to myself. So, well, what can we do here to make this a little more interesting, and to make it? And it might be something very intellectual and saying, well, instead of we're going to use a substitute chord. And as an artist, you understand what the craftsman can do, but you're taking more of an abstract kind of thing. Well, what if we go to this? This doesn't seem like it really wants to go there, but let's try this. Put that major 2 chord in there instead of the 6 minor. Oh, wow, that's oh, that works. Okay, so, and sometimes you discover things by accident. So, yes, either way, know when, when you're moving from one to the other. It's always good to kind of step back and let the other one say something. Yeah, wrapping up a little bit here. It's in a little philosophical basic statement here. It's often okay to leave rough ends. It's often okay to leave rough ends, meaning you don't have to push yourself to make sure that everything, whether you're from the craft or the art. And sometimes as an artist, you get so anal into wanting it to be exactly like, but sometimes those rough ends are beautiful. Sometimes they create, like, look at impressionist art. It's very like art. It's art at a glance. It's something it was never meant to have tight edges, and it was just to be kind of like very soft. So when you put a piece of impressionist art on your wall, you don't want it to be exact. You want it to be kind of like, just to create a feeling, to create a mood. There are moods, and then how you use your colors are important. So don't worry about having to cut and tighten all the edges up. Like, I'm in recording now. I'm doing recording, and there's some things I recorded, and it's kind of like, well, it's not exactly perfect. It's in tune, but it's not really in time. I can move it on the Pro Tools. I can move it back and top. And man, the way it kind of comes out, it's kind of sounds a little rough, but it sounds great because just the tune might have that kind of mood that you want at that point. So just as an example, there's all kinds of possibilities that it's okay, to kind of leave it, so you don't kind of keep fighting against each other. It's like saying, "Well, I wanted that, I wanted that," so you don't have that internal consistent. Or you want that, they want that conflict, but you got to know when. It's kind of like it's okay to leave the rough edges. It's okay. Okay, we're there. I think it's done. So you have to be able to tell yourself that. And those rough edges, do you do the, and then I kind of explained it, but do you do the rough edges because you can or because you must? And I kind of leave it there. Do you leave it? Do you finish because you can leave it, or because you must? Because that is what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that finished piece that has got that. So these are evaluations that you make along the way. So hopefully, whoever is viewing this got something out of this. It's every Sunday. I'll pick another topic. Don't have the topic for next week yet. I've got a busy week ahead in performance. I've got some car issues. I got like life stuff to take care of and all that. But what I've been doing is usually taking Sundays and dedicating it to, I'll do my usual stuff that I do and take a good 2 to 3 hours before the podcast. And then get the camera. I've got a different lighting situation. I put the light, instead of the light being here on the side of me, it's down here. It takes now I don't have a shadow on Johnny. I was getting all freaked out. I want to get him in the back. So I'd hopefully this lighting is better. It's still what you call it, a jerry rigged, MacGyver kind of lighting situation. That's looking okay. Camera's working good and all that. So just little things. So hopefully if you watch this to the end, please subscribe and like the video. That always helps. And just trying to get this thing off the ground. It's going to take a while. And if you enjoyed it, come back again. Try to do it live if you can, every Sunday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we'll see you next time.